Hello, everybody. I hope you can hear me okay and see me okay. I'm excited to be back. So, welcome to the channel, and I'll welcome myself back to the channel. I had to take a little bit of a break. I had a bit of a leg injury, and it went into my lower back, and then I was getting some sciatica going on, and sitting at a desk was a little challenging for a while, as you could imagine. But we're on the upswing here, and I've tweaked my desk a little bit, so I'm able to still come to you with some fun painting content. So I'm glad you're with me, and I'm very excited to be back. Uh, Gosh, it seems like it's been forever, but we were doing the Boogeyman last, right? We didn't get a chance to finish the render on this guy, so I really want to get in here and bring this thing to life. So, yeah, come along for the ride. If you're doing something creative, good luck and remember to save often. And let's jump into this. Hey, Zane. Yeah, man. Glad you're here and glad to be back. So, wow, gosh, all right, I have to get reacquainted with this guy. Let's see. We got everything looking good. Our brush is working okay. And obviously, let me know too if the mic sounds all right and all that. 'Cause I'm always wanting it to sound okay. All right, let's see. So, where is our sketch? We've got our sketch here, but it's very light. There it is. So, we've got a little bit left to do on the shadows on the ambient shadows for our main character here. We've got the tail, this little bit of the coat, and then we can move on to doing shadow work for all of his little eyeball buddies, which should be fun. Sounds good. All right, thank you for letting me know. And I guess we sort of I guess we did we move this by accident? Yeah, we just accidentally moved that. So let's try to be a little cautious about that. And now it seems like maybe we don't have pen pressure. That's exciting. Let's see if we can quickly troubleshoot that situation. Where's our Wacom driver? It's funny, I was just using this like 2 hours ago and everything was working fine. And now we want to stream and it wants to be difficult. We might have to just do a quick little Photoshop. Don't want to have to restart Photoshop, but I might have to restart Photoshop actually. So, all right, give me 1 minute. I'm gonna restart everything, and the stream will still be up. But I'm gonna go ahead and close everything down, reopen it. Hopefully, we can get pen pressure back. So, give me 1 second. Be right back with you. Okay, we're back and we have pen pressure, so we can actually do art, which is good. Art's good, right? Okay, let's do it. Do you guys ever have that issue where you're like working on stuff and then your tablet just decides it's going to not have pen pressure for a while? That's always exciting, right? Keeps things interesting. And then if you restart the tablet driver while Photoshop is open, see that's where they get you is when you restart the driver and Photoshop is open when you restart it. It won't give you your pen pressure back. Guess we went pretty dark over here, didn't we? So I guess we should probably keep that consistent. Yeah, there we go. Maybe we'll soften it up a little bit in here. I don't know that I want kind of weird marks in that section. You've had it with your Canvas Pro. Oops. Where's our dude? There we go. Lost our dude. You've had it with your Canvas Pro a lot. The occasional driver update. Yeah. Yeah, it gets weird, right? And that's a is that a Huion Huion? I don't know how to say it right. Device, I think. And maybe we should turn on some smoothing to help us get this tail shaded. Oh boy, that's gonna be a little bit of a tricky one. Yeah, there we go. Oh, just take our time with this tricky shape here. Be nice if we could do it all in one go, right? But I think we'll have to just kind of piece it together in a few marks here. Yeah, this is where if we had our flats in place first, if our process was a little bit different and we were doing flats and then shadows, we would have a nice little mask to work with for our tail here. But we decided to do shadows for flats, so we're working maskless, and that's so that way we can change our mind about the shape if we want to. But then there's this issue of adhering to our lines. Now, if it's a little different than the sketch, I don't know that I care a whole lot because we're going for a lineless look. But I also like the shape we had, so I don't want to change it a whole lot. Let's turn off our smoothing. Kind of want maybe to get a little more of that Sartorius in there. I know he's got sort of like fur on his legs here. He's kind of satyr like, but I do kind of like showing a little bit of the anatomy flow either way. And I try to get the shadows to a point where I'm not feeling like I need to rely on highlights to understand the form or to help the form read. because it could be that we want to go for a very sort of diffused, naturalistic sort of a vibe to the render, and then we wouldn't really want to have any strong highlights anywhere. Now, normally I'm streaming on a wired connection. We're trying wireless this time. It's the first time I'm trying wireless, so I'm tempting fate with that choice. Hopefully, our internet stays nice and stable. And on top of that, I'm streaming some music to myself that you guys can't hear because otherwise we would get a copyright strike. But just stressing my bandwidth a little bit more, and I'm really asking for it. I think with me over the wireless connection, but I don't know. We'll see how it goes. Right? Let's get a little bit more shadow between the leg and the tail here. I've been trying to practice my inking as well, and it definitely, I think, gives me a little more confidence in placing some darker shadows and not being afraid to do that. But if you do it, you got to be consistent, right? Okay, that's looking cool. I think what we do now is we switch to this feather situation, which I wonder if maybe do we lasso this? Ooh, oops. That might be kind of a fun way to paint some of this in here. Let's see. Yeah, okay, there we go. That's going to be the magic touch here for this one. It's going to be a hell of a time trying to get this matched in our color pass. Oh boy. What have we gotten ourselves into? And maybe we get some little striations here. It's kind of fun. I look a little low in the frame. I'll have to again, my setup's a little different. I'm gonna have to do some slight adjustments for next time, but I think it's good enough for now. All right, here we go. Here's the big one. We're gonna just go for it. Yeah, okay. Bam. I realized I was inching slowly into it, and I should just go for it. There's a couple little wobbly bits here that I'd probably clean up a bit. Now the flats are very bold, and so when we establish the shape, the outer shape with the flats, it can actually sort of clean up or give the impression of a cleaned up shadow edge as well. I'm not encouraging people to be sloppy, but a little bit of that offset between the two layers is unnoticeable. So don't get too obsessed about it. There's diminishing returns on perfection. Okay. Yeah. Maybe give it a little more shadow here. Maybe here. I'm like looking around my room more so than usual because it is spider season here in California, and I hate spiders, and they just somehow they find their way into my house occasionally. And the last thing I want to have happen is a surprise spider when I'm streaming. That would be unpleasant. I'm probably making it sound a lot more worse than it really is, especially if you're an Australian. You probably would think I'm a total lame-o in comparison to the stuff you guys got. But yeah, for an arachnophobic, I don't care what size spider it is, it's too big. What were we doing with this guy's hair here? Was this let me turn off our shadows and take a look here. I guess we were a little bit oh no, you know what? I think we were implying it kind of comes in on the side. He's got a little bit of like a friar's hairdo going on. Okay. All right. It's funny coming back to a piece that you haven't looked at in a while because it's like very familiar because you're the one who did it, but at the same time, you're questioning what your former self was thinking in some cases. And I know too, we're going to be doing this thing where the hair is like a window into a other dimension or something. So I'm not forgetting about that. I remember that was our plan. And so the shading on the hair has probably limited value, but I'm just going to pop in a little bit so we can get a sense for the shape of it. And who knows, maybe the galaxy thing will just look too weird and we'll want to do more of a traditional rendering on the hair. But I'm going to give it a really good, honest try and hope that it works out. Try to get a little bit of that spherical shading in here and that dome of his, that giant noggin. I think we did a pretty good job with some of the details in the mouth here. That's looking pretty nicely resolved. It is kind of scary how long and how far you could take this pass. We can really just go crazy with it. And sometimes we do. Sometimes that works out. I think we'll try to find a happy medium here. But as I get a little further in the ambient shadow pass, I'll start to try and think about a little bit bigger, broader shadows. And the reason I do these later in the process, it's a little weird, right? Because you're always told to think big to small, and we do think that way. At least I try to think that way about the shapes. But in the execution of these shadows, one of the things that's tricky is that if you have really big, giant, nice gradients of shadow, and then you go in and you try to define medium and small shapes, and you sort of pushing and pulling those smaller shapes around, you're kind of messing up the nice bigger gradients, assuming they're on the same layer. And I try to minimize my layers. So it ends up that I tend to do some of these bigger, wider gradients later in the shadow pass, in the ambient shadow pass specifically. Hey, Bangu, Bangu, thank you so much. It's very nice to be back. I'm glad to see you again. All right. Man, we're getting real close on the main character here. I think it might be time to switch over to those little companion monsters. And something we can do as well, of course, is we can dupe our shadows and we can give ourselves a clearer sense of how well we've done with things. Uh, Sometimes you can put a white layer behind this to really check your shadow work, but this is a fairly light background, so I think we have pretty good visibility either way. And yeah, I mean, essentially, you just want this to look like a 3D render, right? Like an ambient occlusion render out of a 3D program. The high bar, getting mathematical precision on something, but yeah, you just keep practicing it, and you might be surprised at how far you can get. All right, so let's go ahead and undo the duplication there. This will be just our single shadow layer. And here, I'll show you guys a weird trick. So if you want to double down on some shadows selectively, you control click your existing shadows and then go ahead and hide your selection. You can soft brush into that selection to darken areas selectively. So basically, it's like just the stuff that's already sort of identified as shadow. You can lean into those, right? Selectively. Like I'm being very specific about areas I'm doing this in. And that can be a little bit more controlled than just having to do a complete duplicate of your shadows. We still might do that, but it means that I'm likely able to use the duplicate on a very low opacity and not have to push it too hard. So I really like this technique here. So now, see if we do a duplicate, it's like, boy, that's really burnt looking. So we might just come in and we might, yeah, just push it a little bit right, and that might be enough. I'll wait to do that because I gotta duplicate our colorized layer and stuff. Make sure that the duplicate shadows are also tinted a little warm, like these are, which requires a little bit of layer finesse. And I don't really want to do that until we get all of the base shadows in everywhere. So let's go ahead and switch over now to some of the little eyeball buddies. And for that, I may turn the lines up a little bit higher as we just try to get some base shapes working. Make sure we don't have a selection. Yep, there we go. So here's that eyeball shape. And you'll notice here I'm not worrying about these overlapping elements. I'm just trying to establish a spherical volume first, and then I'll come in and just erase, because it's just a hell of a time trying to get that spherical shape if you're having to kind of work around those intersecting bits. That just sucks. So it's interesting, I guess, how sequencing can be a huge part of making a piece easier to execute. I guess it makes sense when you think about it, but art sometimes feels so impulsive. I think because sometimes that creative spark is fleeting. You kind of want to react to it the moment you have it, and that can make it harder, I guess, to think through sequencing. Right, you're just kind of trying to uh, strike while the anvil is hot, and that might mean moving a little faster than what is appropriate. Something I noticed about Kim Jong Gi, he's sorely missed and just such a giant of art, right? And I watched a lot of his content, his live streams and stuff, and any videos that showed him drawing, and just so mesmerizing and inspiring. And one of the things that I sort of noticed is that, well, it does feel like he was capable of creating content very quickly. He was very thoughtful and almost contemplative about his designs. You could tell that there was a little bit of a reflective moment, like, okay, what is the picture I'm seeing in my mind before the pen goes to the page? I think he got to a point where he could do that so quickly that it was almost invisible to the viewer. But I think it all sort of told me that uh, it's worth it to just take a step back and just think for a moment. What is it that you really are trying to do? What is it you're trying to make? And you might be slower than him, right? You might not be able to envision that as quickly. And same here, right? Like, very few people can do that, but it's not a step that he was omitting. It was just a step that he was very practiced at and made it seem sort of imperceptible, that stage, right? He was doing it so quickly, but it was there. And so I would kind of encourage everybody to think about the marks before you put them down. Think about the image a little bit more. Try and envision it. Don't sell yourself short. I think that a lot of people just think, well, the only people that can do that are people who have a photographic memory. And the statistics on that are outrageous, right? It's like, one in a million people or something have that, or I don't know what it is. It's really low, basically. And so you think, well, I don't have that. So what's the point of trying to do that? But I do think that you can train that aspect. And I think part of training that is in giving yourself time to envision what it is that you're going to make first. These are just theories. So try it out and report back. Let me know what you find out. I'm trying it myself, so see how it goes. I mean, the other thing too is it's obvious. It's just repetition and muscle memory. If you draw a lot of stuff, you observe a lot of things and draw them. The act of drawing it kind of helps it stick in your brain better than just looking at it. So if there's something that you're drawing often and struggling with it, then use some reference. If there's something that you want to draw a lot but you're uncomfortable with it, then just spend some time and try to commit some of that stuff to muscle memory, some of those shapes, the shape rhythms and language. I draw a lot of people, and I really like faces. Human faces are super fun. I think that's something a lot of people like to paint and draw. And the more that I do that, the more weird little shortcuts and calligraphic marks I come up with to make a face look convincing without killing myself over it. And gosh, it is super hard to figure that out unless you're just doing it all the time. It sucks, right? It's like, damn, the only way to get better is just to do it a lot. I don't know a way around that one. I wish I did. If I find out, or if you find out, share it with the world. We'd all love to know. So I'm just in here noodling the heck out of this fun organic shape. This is some of the funnest stuff to render. And this pass is the really super sculptural pass. All the ambient shadows are very sculptural. And in this earlier phase, I'm thinking about a lot of medium shapes. So we're kind of in a little bit of detail mode. I'm not worrying about like kind of curving this yet because again, if I do that and then I come in and I want to mess with all these medium shapes, it kind of starts to mess with that gradient. So again, going back to that idea of like smart sequencing. For anybody of you who's watching who is using my brush and tool set, I'll just mention here that smudge oily is the way I sort of push and pull things around. If I'm, like trying to make a big change, right? Like really, really push something. Oily is the one that's going to be more directional, whereas smudge AO is just more of a general global dither. Like I go here and I want to just kind of dither this out. Smudge AO just kind of softens everything. But smudge AO, I can actually like push this shadow. I can cut into it. The naming brushes and tools is something that is a little tricky, right? Because you can take different strategies with it. You can name it based on its function. You can name it based on tool it reminds you of, the traditional tools. And so I guess the point there would be if you get someone else's tools and brushes and their names don't make sense to you, then just rename them, right? Like name it something that makes sense to you in the way that you think about it. It's very rare that all the names are going to make sense to you the same way that it made sense to the original artist. But I'm sure a lot of you guys do that anyway intuitively, right? Just rename things to help you remember to do things a certain way or try certain new techniques. Yeah, if you rename it, that's true. You do. Yeah, yeah. You forget where it came from. You could have maybe a backup or something, or do some kind of weird like new name, old name, hyphenated abomination. Sounds scary, but maybe there's a way. Or maybe it's like they live in a folder, and the folder always stays named where they originally came from, but the brushes and tools themselves are what get updated. I feel like it's never a perfect solution. You almost need like tool and brush metadata, right? Like images can have kind of like a history embedded in them. That'd be kind of cool. I don't know how many people would use that though. It's probably only for us super art nerdy folks living on the fringes. Although apparently to Adobe, anybody using Photoshop for something other than photo editing is living on the fringe, which is like completely insane to me. I still have to use the WinTab override to get Photoshop to perform the way I want it to. Completely mind-boggling. In fact, I sort of turn off Windows Ink even when I'm using my tablet on things other than Photoshop because Windows has all kinds of weird behaviors when you have Windows Ink turned on. Like it's trying to be helpful, but it doesn't feel helpful. It feels weird, feels slow. All right, I got one more tentacle here, and then we might turn down the line so I can better finesse and finagle these shadows into place. Yeah, or painting meets database management. Holy crap. That sounds so unappealing. But being organized is appealing to me. I do like systems and knowing how things work and having reliable process. So I like all that stuff. So I don't know, maybe there is some weird part of me that there's some weird overlap with that type of job. When I was art director on Hex, there was a lot of new tools that we came up with to help manage that project on the art side. And I did have a lot of fun thinking about those tools and how to, just make that process a little bit less painful and help it be more streamlined and just work better for everybody. Work better for the team in house, and then work better for all the freelancers we were working with. There was some cool stuff in there. All right. Save. Remember to save your work, everybody. I'm going to turn down the lines. And so we can just reveal our shadow work more clearly. Okay. Yep. That seems like that's working all right. I'm going to start to give us some bigger, broader shadows here. Try to fill in some of those lower halftones. And I might try to hit a few darker spots here just to make sure that we're being consistent about our value range. It's got to feel like it gels with our main character and how we're approaching that. Let's see if we get some of these lower halftones in place, then we won't be relying on all these kind of reflections and whatnot to describe the form. Okay. Now I think we can figure out where are those darker areas, and we'll of course look to any places where there's a lot of intersecting forms. Where the teeth meet the eyeball, that's a natural spot to lean in. I like that little curl there. It's kind of a nice spot to lean into. Maybe we get just a little more shadow underneath this tentacles here. Trying to think like Blender, like a ray tracing program. That 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 meme of like equations flying in front of somebody's face. That's what's going on in my head right now. But it's like photons, not equations. Yeah, now we could think about indicating some of the pupil stuff here in the shadow pass, but I think we could just do that in the flats, and I think that the highlights will kind of be enough for that. And if we decide that it's not, this is going to be on a layer, so we can always come back to it and add some shadows if we need to. Cool. I think that's working pretty good for this guy. Get a couple darker spots in here. Keep your eye moving around the design. And I guess we can do our little trick of doubling down with our selection in place. And we kind of want to look at our main dude and see, is it feeling like it's consistent? I mean, that's the thing about realistic lighting, right? And about a 3D render or whatever, is that it is incredibly consistent. It's not too bad. There's a little bit of a weird oblong shape here. I'm not super worried about it because it's supposed to feel organic. Luckily, when you're dealing with these kind of weird creatures, there's a lot of leeway in accuracy. If we were doing something mechanical, we'd be in trouble. But I think here it's probably fine. So with that, let's actually pop over to our next eyeball buddy. And this guy's a little cloud. I've forgotten what we were doing here. It's like a cloud, but there's like little eyeballs coming out of the cloud. Okay, all right. Let's do it. Guess I can do a little bit of big form description here first. And kind of trails off back here. It's like a, oops, erase hard. There we go. Reminds me of some kind of like a failing motor or something with its trail of smoke behind it. Now we got these eyeballs. Do some spherical shading. There's that smudge oily doing work there to push things around. And I like the idea that this cloud kind of hangs over the eyeball, creates a little a little a little visor. So, we're kind of treating all this smoke and stuff very physically. I think that's a good approach. It's you don't want to cheap out on the render just because something is supposed to be backed, right? Like, oh, it's just a glow, or it's just mist, or it's just whatever. It's like, yeah, but it's still going to obey the laws of light and shadow and everything. It might have form if it's dense enough. Here we're thinking of it being very dense, like I'm like a cumulus cloud or something. I guess the takeaway there is don't have the effects in your image feel like an afterthought. See, sometimes artists do a really good job with all of the main physical forms, and then they add some smoke or fire or something to the image, and it feels like a sticker that's been added to the image. It doesn't feel like it's been thought through with the same degree of nuance. Maybe it looks like a little bit of a rushed afterthought, and easy way to ruin a good piece is to just slap something in there for an effect. All right, maybe we get some bigger forms in here now. A little more general kind of shadowing underneath each of these. Find a couple spots where we can lean into that dark shadow. And now thinking about it as a spherical shape, just give a little bit of that light decay on the underside. Thinking about it like a sphere lit from above. I guess we're doing a typical lighting scenario, right? Where ambient light generally is just going to be kind of from the upper hemisphere. But remember, there are situations where that might not be the case, right? Your ambient light might be coming from somewhere else. Um, yeah, those are trickier, right? Because it's a atypical situation, but it is worth thinking about that a little bit. We're not doing anything too unusual here, luckily. All right, I think that's a pretty good stab at that one there. We can maybe add a little bit of definition there. But otherwise, yeah, I think we can move on to the next one, which is this silly guy over here, this funny little antenna. Yeah, okay, cool. Let's where do we start? Let's start down here. First mark is always the scariest mark. Might turn the lines down a little bit on this one. I think we have a pretty good bold drawing there we can read. So rather see my shadow shapes a little clearer. There's a few little weird, like wobbly marks here that I don't know what my past self was thinking there. I guess it's maybe just a little bit of maybe okay. Let's turn this off. I guess I was thinking that maybe there's like a layer. Oops, I'm painting on the line layer. Maybe there's this kind of like a transition piece from this front eyeball area into the tentacles in the back. Almost flower like. So, all right, I can make that work. It's got me thinking about a fried egg or something, right? I got the yolk in the middle there. I'm not hungry though. I don't know. My brain just goes to egg for some reason. Okay, so there's the shadows on that guy. So let's just take a moment, kind of look at it, see if there's anything else we want to do on our shadow pass here. Maybe this foot down here wants a little bit more emphasis. Okay, let's double down on a little bit of shadow work on this guy back here. And now let's duplicate our ambient shadows and just see how far we want to push those. Look at it in grayscale as well, just in case the colors are affecting the way we're evaluating this. I think that might be a good level to boost the shadows to, right around there. And yeah, I think we might be ready to put some flats in. That's exciting, right? So, okay, I'm going to move some layers around. Lines on top. Set those to gray for the layer color. They're not actually gray, it's just the way they look in the layer stack. I'm going to go ahead and put all of our shadow layers in a group. And let's start a new group for all of our flats. And we'll make sure that our shadow layers are all on multiply. And they are great. So, yeah, colors. Maybe we'll start with his skin. That's usually a fun place to start. Um, and we could definitely be inspired by the original here. I don't know that we'll stick with that, but we could use it as a starting point. So there's kind of like a pale blue color going on there. This is such a fun step. Like it. I was just talking to one of my students earlier today about trying to make the process fun because 99% of a piece is the process and 1% is the end result. And, for me, there's something fun. I try to find something fun about every step of the process. So the line art is fun because you're designing, a lot of invention going on. The, uh, the ambient shadows are fun because you're seeing all of the forms take shape. They really gain their sculptural volume in that phase, and you can kind of refine and detail the design. So that's really cool. This phase is fun because it's the first time you're seeing the colors in the image and you're seeing the local values being established as well because every color has a value, right? So that's fun. So you got to kind of try to figure out what is a art style that you not only like but you also like to produce. And for you to make that choice, you need to know what that process is very clearly. And to know that process, you have to research and you have to experiment and look at other artists' work as well. And their loose work in particular can be very informative to see under the surface what's going on. I guess that's skin right there. I left that a little vague in the drawing, but that's fine. I'm going to turn off those lines. They're sort of distracting me. And we'll include the lips in here, but obviously the lips are going to probably get their own special treatment. And sometimes it can help you to think about the sort of physical logic of a surface when you're deciding what layers to use for it. So, I kind of think about how the lips are skin, but then there's maybe some color variation in the lips, or maybe there's some lipstick on top or whatever. So it to me feels like on the base level it's skin, so it needs the skin as its first layer. And then if I want to do something else to it, I can do a variation layer that sort of glazes into it. And if there's something like lipstick on top, that's a kind of a layer that sits over that. And I think that mentality comes from my 3D background where you think about shaders and, maybe it's like a fire hydrant that's metal, but then it's been painted red. Well, you kind of want the metal underneath the paint to look really good so that when you apply the paint on top, you can do like weathering and damage and stuff and reveal the layer underneath. And it looks really, really convincing, right? So I think there's a little bit of that that goes into my mentality with it. It makes sense in my head anyway. Now, the interesting thing here is that his body and legs are that same pale blue color, which in a simplified cartoon like that, you can I think get away with that. Well, I don't want to say get away with, but like it is the nudity of his body feels much less abrasive because of the medium, right? The style. Whereas in a version of an image like this, where it's more rendered and we're talking about realistic surfaces and textures, um, it's interesting that we won't be able to really do that with the same success, right? But we could still maybe try to have the color of the fur give us the impression that it's all one body, like it's all that your eye flows from one to the next, and that might be that it's just maybe like a more desaturated kind of bluish gray color. That might be a good place to start. So I guess the point there is maybe we don't want to have a really extreme change between the skin and the fur. We want to be evocative of this original design. So here, the flat, we can kind of, the shadow's got a little questionable there, so the flat can kind of clean that edge up, and then we can use the inverse of the flat layer to delete away any excess shadow. I think I'm going to use my fill action here to just fill in all this stuff. Well, assuming we can get it all enclosed. There we go. We missed the little edge there. And hopefully, do I have the right hotkey setup for this? Smart fill font. Yep, there we go. Whoops, missed this little part. Perfect. I wish that Photoshop was smart enough to be able to select this form perfectly from our shadow pass, but it is not smart enough yet to do that. Too many artifacts, so you kind of just have to manually do it. Yeah, it's not too bad. It's a little time consuming, but it's maybe a good sort of meditation phase. Just kind of zone out. Hey, how's it going? It's going good, man. I say man in the sort of generic sense. I don't know. Not making any assumptions. It's hard to remember everybody from their screen name. But yeah, good to see you again. I'm happy to be streaming again. I had to just get my my setup all figured out over here, and I think we're rocking and rolling. Maybe I will include that little shape there. Is that enclosed? Can we do? Yeah, we got it. Smart fill for the win. Is that all the skin we want? Yeah, I think that is. Inevitably, we're going to probably realize at the end that we missed some little bit. You guys might even be seeing it already, and I'm missing it. But I think that's all the skin. Let's try something with the fur here. In fact, before we do that, I'm going to name this layer so I can be a bit organized. And now this will be the fur. And again, like wrestling with that idea of continuing your eye through. This is the current color right here. So maybe we go a little darker. And yeah, maybe a little bit more gray. I mean, the thing is, we just got to define the region, right? And then we can change our mind. We can adjust it afterward. I'll just start with this as an initial stab at the idea. Oh, you know what? This tail. It's like that's obvious, right? I was just talking about tail is not furry, only the end is. So this wants to be that same blue. It was it was too loud and too obvious for me to notice. It's like, you open the fridge and you're looking for the bottle of ketchup and you can't find it nowhere. And then you realize it's right on the center middle shelf right in front of you. It was too obvious. You can see that my shadow brush has some texture to it. I have some students sometimes ask me about the texture on it and how to adjust it or how to turn it off. So if you want to do that, you'll just go to, let me switch to it here. Go to window and then brush settings, and then you'll see an option here called dual brush, and you just turn off dual brush. All the texture is coming from the second brush that I added in there for texture. So if you turn that off, the brush will be perfectly smooth. And if you want to play with the quality of the texture, just go into the dual brush settings, and there's a bunch of sliders in there you can mess with. There's no real science to it. I mean, when I'm tweaking this stuff, I sort of just play with it until it looks right. Yeah, I'm very excited to be finally getting back into the character here. I started thinking about it again and trying to envision how it would look all colored and everything. So we're finally seeing how that's coming together. I think in terms of you know watching an artist work, this is probably the least interesting phase because it's just filling in regions. So bear with me as we work through this process. All right, back into the fur. We'll just do the entire leg in this color. It could be that the fur kind of thins out in some of these areas. You get some of the skin showing, but I think I'm going to kind of keep it a little simple as a starting point here, and then we can get crazier if we want to later. Something kind of fun I've been doing on the side, traditional art stuff, is I've been playing with a new drawing book, a new blank book. It's got a special kind of paper in it called I actually hope I pronounce this right. I think it's Tomoe River paper. I'm not sure that how you pronounce the E part. I think that might be correct. It's a it's a Japanese paper. It is kind of famous in the fountain pen worlds because it's a paper that's weirdly like resilient to ink and it's super smooth. If you guys have ever used like marker paper before, it has this sort of like a sheen to it, right? Almost, I don't want to say plastic, but hopefully you guys know what I'm saying. Like there's this very like almost slightly glassy surface to the top, and this paper has that, and this journal is filled with that paper. It's from Galen Leather, and I was curious about it because I really like using ink on paper. I'll usually do a loose little pencil doodle, and then I'll finalize it with some ink. And I like to use my fountain pen for that. And it's a super fine tipped fountain pen, and both the ink, the nature of the ink, and the nature of the fine metal tip can be a little bit challenging for paper. You can get well, inks obviously can sometimes bleed or not dry. I mean, there's all kinds of different things that can kind of go wrong with the paper. And then it being a fine tip fountain pen, it's very sharp. And if you have the wrong kind of paper, then the tines of the nib will tear up the paper, and you'll get paper fiber in the nib, and it's a mess, right? So this paper is just really good about all those things, and it lets the ink sit on top. And if the ink has any kind of a sheen to it or shimmer, like it really allows that to breathe really nicely on the surface. And it has no issues with friction, with the nib sharpness or anything. It just glides right across. It's so resilient. But the weird thing about it, after everything I've said, you would assume, well, this must be like a thick, durable, like cardboard Bristol type of thing. And the funny thing is, it is the thinnest paper I've ever used. Kind of akin to marker paper. Like marker paper is really resilient, but yet kind of semi-transparent, right? That's the best thing to compare it to. So yeah, this book is filled with that stuff, and I've been playing with that, doodling, and so far just using my standard black ink to draw it all in. But I've got a few colored inks on the way where I can maybe add some fun little color accents to it. I'll be curious to see how it looks on this paper, but so far I've been impressed. The one thing about it though is that it's thin, right? So you want to put something behind it so you don't mess up the page below. It's not that it bleeds necessarily, but you're going to get um, like indents on the page underneath it from the nib. It actually, like after I'm done drawing on a page and I flip it over and I feel the backside, it's actually like it's embossed because of all the nib work on there. It's actually kind of cool, but you want to have something underneath it when you're drawing so the next page is untouched. So the journal actually comes with a little thin sheet of leather, soft leather that you can put behind it so you don't mess up the next page. I love playing around with traditional tools, so I thought it might be kind of fun to share that. So that's kind of interesting, that fur. Maybe let's see, let's play with, yeah, maybe something like that could work. And maybe there's even a little bit of a gradient going on. That could be kind of fun. I'm going to hold off on textures and gradients until we're done with all the flats, because I kind of think about that as its own phase. But we'll create a little mental bookmark to try that. Let's do the coat. That seems like another good place to start to realize this. And for the coat, his original coat's black, so certainly we could just go black. But I think before I go black, I think I want to try a warm, a very dark, warm gray. That's just kind of a starting point. And do we have it? It's interesting because on the original, he has like a red lining to his coat, which, oh, that's interesting. The red lining, is it like, is this a situation where we just make the whole coat red? Okay, let's fill it in and then we can play with it. These are fun choices to make. We've got a primary scheme going on here with the blue, red, and yellow. Winning formula might just be that we want to lean into that. Do I use a hard brush to paint on the edge? Yeah. This is when I'm trying to get these regions defined, it is a hard brush, but it has shape dynamics, so I can make it thin or thick, and basically just lets me. I have an easier time getting into all the shapes that I want to get into. So yeah, flat brush, but shape dynamics enabled. And where I've got a color edge already defined, I can just paint sloppily and let it overlap. And where I don't have an edge defined, I've got to be more careful. But the idea here would be try to avoid defining any edge twice. I mean, we kind of already are defining an edge twice with the shadow layer and the flats layer. We certainly don't want to make more passes with the flats layer, right? Like that each color is asking us to define the edge twice. Like that's a huge waste of time. So try to avoid doing that. And if you want to kind of like fill in a region, you can just create a little closed off little island there, fill it in. This is just a kind of a visualization thing. Just kind of want to see the chunks get filled in. See, the nice thing is all the stuff is defined here. So this edge, we don't need to fuss about this edge. But the button is not, and the button we want to have different. Now the trim on this is something where I'm still deciding if I want to have it be different or not. I think I do, but not totally sure yet. So we'll have to. Well, I'll just define all of this as one thing for now, and we can split it off later. I guess that little pocket there is supposed to be skin. I don't know that I filled it in with the skin color, but oops, see, that's what happens when you don't have it closed off. Is that it spills out into the rest of the image. So let's close that. Give it another shot. There we go. It's a little bit of a wild edge there. Eh, I don't know. I think there were some accidents going on in there, but I don't mind it. We'll roll with that. Oh, I'm painting around this, but I just remember that that's included, right? So let's go right in here. Oh, is that? I guess that's the gum right there. It's a little tricky spot. I can kill this this edge here, although we need an edge around the button. We gave him the rolled up sleeves, a little different vibe than the original. Uh-oh. The skin missed a little part there. All right, I'll go back and grab that in a second. And the skin is a little bit out too far on the nose, so I'll kind of erase a little bit of that. Let's go back in and clean this up. There we go. And I think this was the area too where I think I missed earlier. So let's do that. A little in there. Perfect. Back to the coat. See if we can do a. Ah, gotcha. Okay. Close it off, fill it in, check for any little spots we missed. All right. Yeah, that's a good starting point there. But yeah, we may play with a little bit of yeah, because I do like that red accent, but I just don't know if I want to create that edge there. All right, we'll have to see. Let's do the we could do the hooves next. All this hooves and guess we can also do kind of a dark. I don't know, we may even just use that again as a starting point. Why not? We could go lighter with these as well. That could also work. But I kind of like to use these choices to lead your eye through the design. So if we have a dark coat, then it may be advantageous for us to have dark hooves as well. Doesn't have to be exactly the same, but yeah, let's try maybe lightening them a little bit. Maybe we go a little more saturated with them. And maybe a little more yellow. Okay. Yeah. I guess we could do the same color of the fur here as here, even though it feels rather feather-like, and I think if we wanted to, we could justify it being its own color. Is it supposed to be dark like the coat? Maybe. Okay, I guess we won't know until we try. So let's try it. Now here, this is as I was talking about earlier, the outer shape here is going to be kind of a pain to capture again. We used a lasso for this, but the lasso is mainly in our initial phase to just get a nice crisp shape. And then once we have it, we can just trace it, right? It's essentially what we're doing here. And it's a lot easier to trace this shape than to try to create a nice clean graphic shape before anything is down on the page. And some of these thin areas are going to be challenging for my smart fill to grab correctly, so we may have to do some cleanup there as well. What I'll typically do is paint in any of the super thin regions a little bit manually to make it so that there's less cleanup after the fill. Reason it struggles is because it all it's doing is it's essentially just expanding the wand selection a little bit, and it struggles in these really tight spots. All right, we're almost there, guys. Almost through this feather shape. Okay, let's see if we can get a good smart fill on this piece here. Now revealing some issues with that skin pass. All right, there we go. Hey, we did it. Check for any little issues. Only a couple little spots here and there. I have to say there is something kind of nice about that being dark there on the end. It kind of helps your eye move through the design. Assuming that the coat stays that way, which it might, it might. And then his hair is going to be. I think we're going to go with this dark blue, but I'm going to go for that kind of galaxy thing. I think so. It'll be dark. So kind of dark at the end, dark in the middle, dark on top. Seems like that's kind of making sense. I want to do, this is the tail feather, and then let's do a new layer. Let's do the nails. The nails light. Maybe we'll just go with the same color as the hooves there. I am a fan of a limited palette, so I tend to, by default, choose things that already exist in the image before I go adding something brand new. Yeah, that seems to be been pretty good. I'm excited to add some variation to the skin, some warm areas. Just subtle though. I don't want to go crazy with it. Another spot where that skin layer could have been cleaner. There we go. Now his teeth. I think I'm going to go a little lighter with his teeth. So let's call this nails. New layer. Take this and let's go more in that range. So he's definitely not going to have pearly whites. He's a heavy coffee drinker. That's probably the best tooth of them all. That one right there, sticking out straight from the front. It's too funny. Okay. And then we can do those two buttons on the coat because those feel like they're a progression from this color here. We go this direction. And we get coat buttons and maybe the earplug or gauge, I guess. That gives us the earrings as well. Anything else? That's probably it. So okay, let's do the tongue, and the tongue we'll do red. And maybe not this exact red, but you can kind of play with it. Maybe it goes a little bit. Whoops, let's go a little bit more desaturated with it. Yeah, something like that. All this layered tongue, and then we got to get all the gums and other parts of the mouth. So I think I want to go for this color, but just tweak it a little bit. Oops, I just messed up my layers. Background, cool, lines off, shadows on. Yep. Hey, did we get this? We got that color? Okay, good. All right, let's go over here. Fill all this in. Yep. Okay. And I think once we have his palette figured out, I think that'll help us figure out what the eyeball palette wants to be. All these little guys hovering around, kind of riff off of that. The eyeballs could just be that tooth color. To be honest, that's not too bad of a choice there. Maybe a little bit lighter. Let's see if we go. Let's go up just a notch there. Yep. And again, that could influence choices on some of these guys. So yeah, let's put the color of the hair in. I think that we're actually trying to get a little over time, so I want to try and wrap up or get to a good moment here to kind of stop things. This is the gums, and then this is the main eyes. So I think maybe we'll put the hair in, kind of settle on a color for the hair, and then we'll maybe tune the jacket color. And then I feel like we'll be at a good stopping point where we have all the kind of main colors established for the character. And then next time we can get into the colors for the little friends, and then we can start adding on textures and color variations, which will be a lot of fun. So let's go ahead and go for a similar value, but I'm going to shift this now to be like a saturated blue tone. Maybe we'll go, yeah, let's try that. See if I can get this shape locked in easily. Those edges are really fuzzy there. That's okay. I can make that work later. Now, what is going on with this hair back here? We were very suggestive with this. And I don't know that I was super clear about what I was wanting to do with this shape over here. I guess it's like this. Sure. Yeah, that seems good. So what you'll notice is that I'm kind of careful about the saturation of these colors. I'm inspired by the original, but I'm in a lot of cases toning it down because I want to kind of bring a little bit more of a grounded quality to this. And super saturated colors are going to look a little more artificial or maybe a little more whimsical. So Both those things I'm trying to be a little metered about how far we go with that. Okay, yep, we gotta navigate our way around this eyeball, buddy. Probably end up having to adjust this a little bit when we fill in all this fleshy stuff here, but this would be a good initial pass. I've got I bought Doom Dark Ages. Has anybody had a chance to play that yet? No spoilers. Just curious if anybody's checked that out. I've just heard some general good things. Fan of the series and definitely wanted to check this one out. As big a fan as I am of Doom, I'm a bigger fan of some of the similar forgotten franchises like Hexen and Heretic. And with the dark fantasy twist of Dark Ages, I thought, well, this is probably the closest I'm going to get to like a Hexen or Heretic reboot. So I was pretty amped up about that idea. I know I'm a little behind on it. I think it came out a month ago or so, but hoping I can maybe find some time to have some fun with that. Did we get did we get everything? Can we just go for it? Oh no, we're not quite closed off. Where are we not closed off? I might have to isolate this layer to see. Okay, this is all closed. Closed. Ah, there we go. Did we get it? Yeah, we got it. All right. Oh my gosh, look at that. That hair shape is insane. Uh, you don't really notice it until you really fill it in. I think I actually may want to cut in this hair a little bit more here or show a little more scalp. So, so I'm going to tweak this just a little bit now that I see the shape. Let's go. Let's go like that. Let's go to our shadow layers. I'm going to have to kill the duplicate. Let's feather this here. Okay, duplicate, opacity down. And then, whoops, wrong thing. Window, come back. There we go. Skin, color the skin. Yeah, there we go. That line looks better. Okay, so yeah, last minute tweak to the coat. I had an idea of maybe going dark red with it. So I want to try that. Colorize. Let's see. Red, saturate. Okay, so there, yeah, I like it. I like it. I think, yeah, let's go. Let's go dark with it. Yeah, super dark. And I think then we're kind of benefiting from that original idea of the primary triad of the blue, red, and yellow. And I like kind of paying tribute to that original aspect of it. Thanks, Saint. I appreciate it. We're having some fun. We're experimenting a little bit, but I think overall I'm digging where it's at. I think it's in a pretty good spot. I think we'll put some textures in next time. We'll obviously get the rest of the colors blocked in, and we'll see about maybe getting some directional shadows in. I don't know. We'll a rim light. Right, there's a lot of cool things we can try and bring into this. But when you get these big color blocks in place, it's cool because you can start to see whether your design decisions are going to read well or not. I mean, you hopefully have a sense of that when you drew it, but yeah, just seeing it with the colors, obviously, that's a much more obvious read on what you've done. And I think that it's definitely looking pretty interesting. Again, we'll definitely try and play with that galaxy situation in the hair. I may want to take the hair. It's funny, we're at this stage where I should probably be wrapping up now, but I want to kind of think I want to turn down the saturation of the hair a little bit because it's feeling a little bit. I don't want to say cartoony, but I want to limit how like whimsical it is. And maybe actually increasing the saturation of his skin slightly would be interesting. Yeah, yeah, maybe boosting the color of his skin a little bit, turning down the hair. I think I like that better. A little bolder skin, a little more subtle hair. Hair could even be a little bit darker. Let's see. Yeah. Yeah, look at the grayscale read. Now we get the thing is the value of the coat and the hair blend. Um, but they're different colors, so it's helping a little bit, but I think we'll maybe use some lighting to help pop the edge of this. Like I think we can just be very clever about popping in an additional light and then it'll fix all those problems. So I'm not that worried about it, but I am thinking about it. So we'll make sure that we address that. Otherwise, yeah, I think that's a good spot for us to wrap up for this session. So I want to thank everybody for hanging out with me, and yeah, it's good to be back. So we'll be back next week, same time, to continue our work on this Ghostbusters villain redesign of the Boogeyman. And if you guys are interested in my free drawing guide, all you have to do is just subscribe to the channel, and there'll be a link in the description. You can grab that. It's just a fun little themed guide to give you some ways to just get some pencil mileage in. Because we all know drawing more is a really surefire way to improve your skills. All right, everybody, take care, and we'll see you next time. Bye bye.